Hello and welcome from wherever you're watching from today. I'm Becky Bolter, Internal Communications Manager here at the IET. And for those who need, I'm a white woman sat on a sofa that's purple, wearing my favourite mint-coloured jacket. Now, I'm really looking forward today to finding out more about how we can build neuro-inclusive workplaces for engineering and technology professionals. So let's take a look at what's coming up in today's session. We'll be hearing from a range of neuro-inclusive pioneers, including experts at Rolls Royce, Atkins Realis, EY, and Mbda. We'll also be talking about the findings of our latest neurodiversity report and what this means for the industry as a whole. Finally, there'll be an opportunity to get involved in a live Q&A with our three guests. So please do add your questions to the YouTube chat as we go through. For now, though, Chief Executive and Secretary of the IET, Ed Almond, will be kicking us off with 7 neuro-inclusive recommendations from our latest report.
Hello, I'm Ed Almond, the Chief Executive and Secretary at the Institution of Engineering and Technology. In our recent Neurodiversity report, we've identified 7 key areas where change is needed to improve neuro-inclusion within our industry. So those areas are, firstly, treating neurodivergent engineers and technicians as individuals. So for example, remembering that although there can be similarities between neurodivergent people, no two are exactly the same, and each person will have unique strengths and requirements. Secondly, we're looking to raise awareness around neurodiverse conditions and shifting attitudes, particularly negative stereotypes and assumptions around neurodiversity. Thirdly, training line managers to support neurodivergent team members, raising awareness of how neurodiversity can affect the way someone works and how to accommodate this and get the best out of your team. Fourthly, integrating neurodiversity into working practice and culture. So for example, normalising differences and taking them into consideration when making decisions and creating policy. Fifth, making it easier for neurodivergent individuals to access workplace adjustments. So removing some of the barriers and long-winded processes for getting support and assistive technology. Sixth, offering targeted career support where it is wanted, not assuming what support an individual needs, but instead working with them to find out what's most helpful. And finally, enabling neurodivergent engineers and technicians to access and build support. For example, creating a colleague network for neurodivergent individuals to meet others like themselves and gain peer support.
Welcome back. I am delighted to be joined on the sofa by my first guest today, Head of Equality, Diversity and Inclusion at the IET and pioneer of our recent neurodiversity report. Please welcome Laura Norton. Thanks for joining us, Laura. Would you like to kick us off with your audiovisual description?
Thank you, Becky, and thank you very much for having me. I am a white woman with shoulder-length blonde hair, or my children tell me slightly greying shoulder-length hair, with bright blue trousers on and a black top today.
Excellent. So let's go straight in. I'd like to find out a bit more about the report into neurodiversity in the industry. Can you tell us a little bit more about why the IET chose this topic?
Well, I think it's no secret that our profession has a pipeline issue, that we're looking for more people to come into the industry with a variety of skills to help support the work that we do. 45% of employers say that they have a technical skills shortage, and we know that we need diverse skills and diverse minds in order to solve global engineering challenges. But what if I told you that there was a significant community of people that we could recruit, or a significant community of people who are already in our industry but a bit blocked in their progression and the work that they can do by the environments that they're in and the people surrounding them? And that's what our work has shown us over the last few years. So we have a neurodiversity member network, a great group of people. Primarily this was set up to provide peer-to-peer support for each other. But they have been a fantastic group for challenging the IET and helping for us to learn and raise awareness about neurodiversity itself. We've also improved our diversity data collection, and in 2022 we did a survey with our volunteers where 1 in 5 of our volunteers who responded said that they identify as neurodiverse or they think they may be neurodiverse. So we can see that our sector is really missing out on valuable skills and opportunity with these people. But I wonder, should we pause for a second and just talk about what do we mean by neurodiversity? So in the report, we use the term neurodiversity to describe the concept that we all think differently, that we all, our neuro function, we all function differently. And we include neurotypes such as ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, dyscalculia, Tourette's syndrome, and others within that.
Fab. And what did the research tell us about the current situation for engineers and technicians? Is it positive?
Sadly not. Many of the people that we spoke to in focus groups described a situation that is not at all positive. People talked about being a bit frightened sometimes to be open at work. They didn't want to talk about their neurodiversity for fear of what others may think of them, for perception, what others may think. People feel that their strengths, their abilities at work, the things that make them really good at what they do are not appreciated, are not valued within the workplace. But we also found that being part of an underrepresented group magnifies those challenges for people. So it tended to be that if you are a woman who was also neurodiverse, you were facing added challenges.
Okay, and finally, what are you hoping will change in the industry as a result of this research?
Well, I think firstly we wanted to raise awareness of neurodiversity and the importance, the value of all the people within our sector, within the community and potential recruits there, but also a real call to action, a call for change. And in the video there, Ed highlighted some of those. The report identifies 7 key areas for change. We need to think about training line managers, we need to think about making reasonable adjustments more accessible. But we also provide some calls to action for line managers, for employers, for colleagues, and for neurodiverse individuals themselves. I learnt a lot throughout the process of doing this bit of research. We learnt that small changes can have huge impacts. So thinking about just changing the way you do things, small things on a daily basis, thinking about communicating ahead of meetings, thinking about communicating in different ways, providing people with an outline of what might be about to happen in a meeting, or we've talked today about providing people with photographs of what a building may look like before they arrive at that building. So I guess I would call on everyone watching today to read the report or read the 2-page summary of the report, and also to think about those small changes. So our IET Inclusive Thinking web pages include some of those tips and changes that we can all make on a daily basis.
Fantastic. Thanks, Laura. Thanks so much. And we'll have you back for the Q&A in a bit. So have you got a question for Laura? Please do put it into the YouTube chat, and we'll have time at the end of the session where we'll get through them and find out more. So thank you very much. Next up, we're going to be handing over to the experts at Mbda, who are going to talk about why organisations should be prioritising neuro-inclusion in 2024.
Hi, my name's Rob. I work for Mbda and I'm a recruitment manager.
I'm Sam. I'm an engineer at Mbda.
Lauren, HR manager and co-chair of our Neurodiversity Employee Network.
Neuro-inclusion is really important to Mbda, as I'm sure it is for many other companies. From our side, advertising is particularly important. Right at the front when somebody's looking at an advert and thinking about whether or not to apply to us as a company. Things like the advert length, making sure we reduce the length, the content. We make sure that we have elements of the advert that talk around talking to us, ask for adjustments. Is there anything that we need to do? As well as actually referencing our neurodiversity network, which again is really important, a very important network amongst our ED&I networks at Mbda.
So the 3 reasons why businesses should prioritise neuro-inclusion. Number 1 is diverse thought, having individuals with different ideas, different ways of thinking, coming together with fresh ideas. Number 2, individuals that are neurodivergent bring skill sets such as creative thinking, attention to detail and hyper-focus, which is fantastic in a number of roles. Number 3 is allowing businesses to go into an untapped market of individuals who can make a real difference to the business world and allowing them the opportunity to grow and progress where perhaps they haven't been able to previously.
I'm dyslexic and Mbda has really supported me. I was provided with coaching, which equipped me with tools and strengthened my coping strategies to enable me to greatly improve my organisational skills. I was also provided with software tools, text-to-speech and speech-to-text, which greatly improves my productivity and allows me to much better interface with the PC. I have the unwavering support of my line manager, and that makes me feel really valued. Having the support of the business, I really appreciate that. It really makes a difference. It lets me feel like I'm part of the team, and it enables me to be at my best.
At Mbda, we do recognise everybody is unique, so it's really important to adjust the stages and make sure it suits people in different ways, whether, as I've mentioned, from advertising through to interviewing, from a candidate's point of view, from a hiring manager's point of view, at the offer stage, within our wording, within social media, on our careers website and our belonging page, making sure throughout the process it is a very unique process tailored to each individual as and where possible.
At Mbda, we have Neurodiversity at Mbda, an employee network. I am the founder and co-chair of this network. Within the last 3 years, we have raised awareness and challenged misperceptions around neurodiversity. The Neurodiversity Network provides a safe space for individuals to share their personal stories and talk to one another and learn about each other. We also have put on a number of external and internal hosted sessions where we raise awareness not only about neurodiversity as a wider subject, but also about certain conditions and specific awareness sessions for line managers and HR. We've also run a number of personal stories, allowing individuals to come forward and share what neurodiversity means to them and support others. One of the main purposes of this network is to ensure that individuals are treated as individuals and that managers and colleagues look to understand more about the individual. I really encourage individuals to set up their own employee networks in their organisation.
So the best source of information on what neurodiversity means to an individual is that person. Everybody is unique and they experience their neurodiversity in their way. It really makes a difference to have that conversation with those individuals or that individual on their own. It's really important with how you as a business can support them.
Neuro-inclusion is really important to us, as you can see. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions or take a look at our careers website.
Some great insight there from Mbda, thank you. Now, I'm pleased to say joining me on the sofa is Head of UK Benefits and Reward at Rolls Royce. Please welcome Andy Parker. Hi, Andy. Thanks for joining me. Can you please kick us off with your audio-visual description?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a 39-year-old man with a blue top on, grey trousers, black hair that's also slightly greying, like Laura. It's also worth noting that I am neurodivergent myself. So I was diagnosed as autistic at the age of 32, and I've recently been diagnosed as having ADHD. So if anyone's interested to see what masking looks like, you're probably seeing it right now. And yeah, you might also see some stimming as we get further on as well.
Thanks, Andy. So you were heavily involved in the IET's research project. Can you tell us a little bit more about the role that you played there?
So I played the role of the chair of the project. And for me, it was allowing an environment for this great group of people who all had the same vision of wanting to do something. But how do we channel it so that it meets what employers, and I was coming as basically a member of the IET that works for another company, would use, would want to read, but also takes on the qualities of what the IET stands for. So a lot of what I did, and to what Laura alluded to, was really challenge those writing the report. Is this good enough? Is it meeting what our requirements are? Neurodiversity, like a lot of ED&I subjects, will have its moment in the sun, and you'll see lots of reports come out from various organisations and governments and so on. Some are fantastic, some are very vague, but for the IET, this is, and we'll go on to about how neurodiversity, neurodivergent individuals have such strength and such power to give the engineering community that we need to make sure it was both a real strong report for the IET brand, but also for the global engineering outreach so that it can really make a difference.
Amazing. And as a neurodivergent engineer who works alongside others in different teams, what strengths do you see in these individuals, and how can organisations best tap into that?
Well, I mean, it's been said on the video, right? They did a great job of explaining some of the traits that you'll certainly read about with creative thinking and pattern recognition. But you're seeing a group that are blocked. You're seeing a group that are blocked to get into showing their talents. And I think you're going to have a real committed group that I've found talking to all neurodivergent individuals. They're not driven by some of the things that we as organisations might think, financial benefits and others. They're important, but you'll find a real committed individual who's committed to goals more so than anyone else. And if you can find a way to harness that or enable that or remove blockers to that, you can have such a fantastic group of people that are going to change the way that your organisation operates.
Amazing. And what advice would you give to engineering organisations looking to build neuro-inclusion?
I think one thing I always say is use it or embrace it as part of your company's strategic goals. Very often, and as we're in March and approaching end of a quarter for us in organisations, we start things that have the best intentions, and then the projects and the money making gets in the way. So you'll see things that have already been started that will drop off. What we did here at Rolls Royce was we knew the traits and the powers and the abilities of this group. And we said, right, if we're looking at changing our technology, doing something more innovative, or we've got to work on something at a shortened timescale, we need some fantastic program managers or people who are blunt enough, and I'm one of these people, to kind of just bash through walls and get it done. We have a population who are able to do that. So when I went and started years ago, and when I first met Laura and started to get involved in the IET, it wasn't the HR or the ED&I teams I was talking to, it was the engineering directors and the people who really led what Rolls Royce would do. And they were saying, you're telling me there's this population of people who can change the world? Right, you have my blessing and my signature to go and make it happen. Then everybody jumps behind your key cause of your organisation. So by interweaving these goals, interweaving any ED&I subject, but here for neurodiversity and neurodivergent individuals, into your strategic goals, it accelerates it, it cements it into what you do, and you'll then get the biggest buy-in across your organisation.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Andy. And we'll be back later for the Q&A. So if you have a question for Andy, please do pop it in the YouTube chat now, and we'll get to them later on in the show. But for now, we're going to head over to EY's Neurodiverse Centre of Excellence leader, Tanya Martin, who's going to share 3 actions that you can take today towards neuro-inclusion. Let's take a look.
Hello, my name is Tanya Martin and I am the head of the Neurodiverse Centre of Excellence at EY. I have quite an unusual role in that over the last 3 years I have built and led a team of neurodivergent technologists. I'm here talking to you today about the lessons that I have learned over the last 2.5 years around neuro-inclusion in the workplace. I want to share with you today 3 areas of focus that organisations can consider when thinking about neuro-inclusive workplaces. The first one is organisations need to mean it. And what do I mean by mean it? So this isn't simply a tick box exercise. What we need to consider is how do we get sponsorship and investment in place in order to drive forward neuro-inclusion within the workplace. We were really fortunate within EY that we had an incredibly senior sponsor for our programme who not only was vocal and visible around neurodiversity, but also gave us access to her senior leadership team to teach them about neurodiversity. We also had investment in terms of money, so we were able to bring in external expertise to help us understand neurodiversity better. We didn't do this on our own. And we also had resource in the shape of someone like me and my team who were committed to this and focusing on this on a day-to-day basis. The second area of focus for organisations is you need to talk about it. This is all about raising awareness within the organisation around neurodiversity. The first thing you need to do is get really clear on your messaging. So what are the terms that you want people to understand and be able to communicate to others? And not be afraid of the topic. There is no right answer. It's better to be having the conversation than not having the conversation at all. We, my team, and our neurodiversity community then went out and spoke to as many people as we possibly could. We're invited to team meetings, we're invited to leadership events, we spoke to our clients, we ran Neurodiversity Celebration Week events throughout March for the last 3 years, and we really got neurodiversity visible across the whole organisation. The third area of focus for an organisation is you need to action it. It's all well and good talking about it, but unless we drive action, we're not going to change the working world. So one of the best examples I've got of action is actually within teams. So it's all well and good having a neurodiversity strategy as part of your broader D&I strategy, but actually a lot of the action is driven through individuals that start to understand neuro-inclusion and drive it through their own processes that they own. The best example that I have is around talent acquisition at EY. They worked with us on our neurodiversity recruitment process for the Neurodiverse Centre of Excellence. They really took time to understand what the challenges were for neurodivergent individuals and how do we change the process to make it more neuro-inclusive. What they've then done is they've started to embed that into the processes that they are responsible for across the organisation more widely. So in summary, there are 3 areas an organisation needs to focus on. First of all, they need to mean it. It's not a tick box exercise. Secondly, they need to talk about it. 1 in 5, that's 20% of your organisation, are likely to be neurodivergent. So they need to feel safe in the workplace to be able to talk about it as well. And thirdly, you need to action it. Because without that action, we can't change the working world for those that are neurodivergent.
Great, thank you very much, Tanya, and welcome back, everyone. I'm very pleased to say we have our final guest here of the day with me on the sofa, Associate Director in the Engineering Practice at Atkins Realis. Please welcome Caroline Norris. Hi, Caroline, thank you for joining me. Would you like to kick us off with your audiovisual description?
I am a white British female, 5'4". I'm wearing a white top, grey trousers, and I'm really pleased to have a block in front of me because I've got some really dirty shoes.
Excellent. So let's go straight in. Can I find out a little bit about the work that's been going on at Atkins Realis to support neuro-inclusion?
Yeah, for sure. We've been talking about neurodiversity for a long time, and for various reasons, a few of us came together in 2019 and realised that we didn't have a neurodiversity network and that our neurodiverse population were not connected in any way, so we created one and we started connecting people, and in doing so we found that it amplified the voice of people who were neurodiverse because they had common challenges that we as a business could change. And so that network has helped identify some of those change initiatives over the course of the last 5 years. Those change initiatives have changed as we have adapted, as the world around us has adapted, but they have always fitted into 3 pillars, and it's really helpful for me to remember the 3 pillars, which is processes and procedures, culture, and then environment. And environment, we're talking about physical environment as well as online environment. So for processes and procedures, one of the biggest things we've looked at is inclusive recruitment. And I think MDBA and the EY videos both talk to inclusive recruitment and the challenges that neurodiverse people face around the typical interview process. So we're promoting apprenticeships. We've done a number of the changes that have already been listed there in terms of job descriptions, how you actually ask questions in an interview, asking people in advance what adjustments they might need to make. But one of the things I'm really pleased about in the last year or so, we've actually gone further into the pipeline, further sort of earlier into the pipeline and connected with schools, so that we're talking with schools, be they SEN schools or local school, non-SEN schools, around what neurodiversity looks like in the workplace, what they want to see as a neuro-inclusive workplace, what they want to see role modelled as a neuro-inclusive workplace, so that we can create that aspiration for children to become engineers in the first place.
Amazing.
That role modelling fills its way into the workplace as well. So we have people who are doing webinars, people who are doing articles, people are going out there and talking about neurodiversity, videos on neurodiversity, to try and encourage people to stand up and disclose their neurodivergence, because we know that stigma, we know that challenge people have from their historical experiences, and the more that people can see other people who are willing to disclose and see how they are included across the company and sort of celebrated, their talents maximised, the more we can encourage more people to do it. It's like a rolling stone. I think that's the right phrase.
Yeah.
Might not be. The third one is then the environment, and we've focused on physical environment. We're moving on to online environment, but physical environment-wise, we've got talented people who actually work on creating inclusive spaces on HS2, creating inclusive spaces in schools. And so we got them together because there's no bigger example, I don't think, of a world designed around neurotypicals than a homogeneous open plan office, right? So if you've got a sensory sensitivity and you've got a single white desk you can sit at, you can't control your lighting, there's smells going around everywhere, noises, distractions, it's a disaster zone, right? So we've brought those talented individuals together and drafted a neuro-inclusive office, like a utopia for a neuro-inclusive office. And that is out there, we've published that, that is for anyone to use, that's not our own personal collateral, we want to see that across the world. So, yeah, I can post that somewhere
that's
for people
amazing.
to see.
We can share it with people after. Thank you. And what outcomes have you seen as a result of these actions?
I think the biggest outcome for me is always in 2019, I had to sit down with people and explain to them what neurodiversity was. And we had to talk about not using terms like disorder, disability, everything dis. We had to try and sort of control and temper the language around it, but really introducing neurodiversity all the time. Now I have people coming and fixing my language. I have people telling me that I should be using the term neurodivergent instead of neurodiverse. And I get it wrong all the time, and I think that's okay still, because as someone said earlier, it's your second intent rather than the first. If you make a mistake but you're willing to fix it, that's the purpose, right? But I'm really happy that people are talking about it so much now that they're fixing my language.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I suppose, what advice would you give to organisations who are looking to prioritise neuro-inclusion?
So the first thing would be take a look at, there's a research charity called Autistica, and they've recently launched an index that they're calling the Neuro-Inclusive Employment Index. And it's aiming to help companies measure change in any of these change initiatives that they're putting in place. Because one of the things we've found really difficult is that measurement. With so many people undiagnosed or unwilling to disclose, how do you measure change? How do you measure that improvement? I mean, I gave you a subjective answer. Something qualitative is what a business needs, and that's what this employment index would provide. So if someone's starting out on their journey, I reckon that's a great starting point, because they also provide the advice on how.
Amazing.
The second thing I would say is, like, don't look to do it, just do it. Like 1 in 5 people are neurodivergent. Like, you have a neurodivergent population, go talk to them, go find out what the challenges are, and listen, like really actively listen, rather than go in with a predetermined opinion. Listen and make the change, because the changes are typically free, typically really easy, and typically really help the entire population, not just neurodiverse people, but neurotypicals as well. So stop looking, just do it.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Caroline. Some brilliant advice in there for viewers and organisations to use and pick up on. So in a moment, we'll be having our Q&A with all 3 guest speakers here on the sofa. So please do pop your questions for Caroline back into the YouTube chat, and we will pick them up in a moment. But before we do, we have a short message from Dr. Stephen Gill. He's founder of Engineered by Dyslexia and Dyslexia in Engineering Day.
Hi, I'm Steve Gill. I'm a fellow of the IET. I'm an engineering consultant by profession and founder of Engineering Dyslexia Day. The Engineered by Dyslexia initiative aims to raise awareness and recognise the unique strengths and perspectives that individuals with dyslexia bring to the field of engineering. Our mission is to highlight how dyslexic thinking, which is often characterised by creativity, problem-solving skills, and the knack for spatial reasoning, can be a significant asset in engineering. It's about creating a more inclusive environment that values diverse minds and encourages individuals with dyslexia to pursue a career in engineering, knowing they have the unique strengths that can drive innovation and progress in a profession that both appreciates them and benefits from their unique qualities. Dyslexia in Engineering Day is held annually during National Dyslexia Awareness Week, which is always the first week of October. The day is usually around the middle of the week. We pick it to avoid any clashes with other events that are happening during that week, and there are many. The day is dedicated to raising awareness about the positive attributes that dyslexic individuals bring to engineering and technology, as well as the challenges that they face. Organisations may celebrate and acknowledge, and they even leverage this day to celebrate the individuals that they have working within their teams, and also the contributions that they make to the engineering profession. It's also a day to share best practice, and also to act as a signal to those outside of the industry currently that the industry is welcoming, and those organisations that are celebrating the day are ones that accept and encourage diverse minds within their teams. I hope that organisations will consider celebrating Engineering and Dyslexia Day and use it as a showcase for their extraordinary teams and talent.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen Gill, and be sure to add that into everybody's calendars. Fantastic. So we're here now with our live Q&A with all 3 guests back on the sofa with me. Welcome, Andy, Caroline, Laura. Thank you. We've had some brilliant questions in, and we're going to have a look through these now. So I think off the back, perhaps, Caroline, of our conversation that we've just had, we've had a question to ask, what does a neurodiverse office space look like?
Oh, now you're testing me.
On the spot.
There's a few things around control. So it's around providing a different space for different people, because as we've said, not all neurodivergent people are the same as neurotypical people. Not all neurodivergent people are the same as each other. So providing choice for everybody, so different textures in desks, different spaces in terms of noise, so larger areas, smaller areas, providing control for people so that they can control their own temperature, so that they can control their own lighting. And then there are things around carpeting and patterns and wayfinding, as well as having plants, and I'm looking at your lovely trees and plants and thinking what a great job you've done. There's all sorts in there that provide just different spaces so that people have the option to choose a space that suits them.
Excellent, thank you.
Just to pick up on that, a lot of you find that the strive to improve a world for a neurodivergent individual is usually a catalyst that helps everybody. That just sounds delightful. Not even for a neurodivergent individual, it just sounds like a nice place to work.
Yeah.
So you'll find changes, certainly things on Teams that are, the Mbda video with text to chat and chat, people will be using that, not just a neurodivergent individual. So again, the catalyst might come, but it just sounds like a really nice environment for anybody.
And people feel differently on different days.
Absolutely.
So yeah, the right space for the right work. Brilliant. Okay, let's pick another one here. So we'll come to you, Laura. Do you have any tips on how to manage colleagues who feel their neurodivergent peers are getting preferential treatment via workplace adjustments?
I think I'd say that line management is always based on the individuals involved, and we all line manage different people in different ways. People might need different amounts of time from you. People might need notes written after a meeting, or a little bit of a heads up ahead of the meeting what it might be about, so that you don't take somebody by surprise. I think really it's about understanding across the entire team that, as we've said throughout today, it's people work in different ways, people succeed in different ways. So I think it's understanding and flexibility across an entire team to ensure that everybody can be their best, and the work that is done from that team is the best it can be.
That's great. It's a little bit like Caroline was saying earlier about strengths and having a strengths approach and the value in that for individuals. Okay, Andy, I'll come to you for this one. How can we encourage neurodivergent employees to be open about their needs?
It can be a tough one. It can be a tough one in that sometimes misplaced support is sometimes outing people. So you have to let them do it at their own time. But similar to what's been said before, if you can set up something like a neurodivergent working group, and we did something similar around the same time actually at Voices. Somebody's got to take the stand, whether it's neurodivergent, neurotypical, whoever, and say, look, this is a safe space. Just put a post on the wall and say, hey, this is it, here's the email to answer. And the more you can demonstrate that this is a safe space to share what you're going through, and again, it's similar with any ED&I subject, then people will be willing to share what they're going through individually. Because at that point, it's so much of a knife edge, because if you get the wrong reaction, then you just go and close up again. So it's about building that environment to begin with, and even if it's just one-to-one. Say, hey, that's what I did. I sent an email out to a load of people saying, I've just been diagnosed autistic. Anyone else out there? One person replied. And then 2 people became 4 people, and 4 people became 8. And all of a sudden we build a movement, right? And that's how it is.
Yeah, that's great. And we've had another question here that's, I know neurodivergent conditions can appear differently in men and women. How do we raise awareness of the difference and challenge those stereotypes? I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or would like to take this one.
I think this is something we've talked a little bit about at the IET's Neurodiversity member network, with people sharing their different experiences and how that may be linked to gender, or it may be linked to other factors about you or your background, or I think there is research to show that there are some differences in the way that individuals may mask because of their expectations within society or expectations within school. We've heard from quite a few people within our IET neurodiversity member network about very late diagnosis, and I think there may be differences there based on people's personal experience, background, how much people have been aware or their family have known about neurodiversity. So I think it all interlinks with different areas, but we did hear in the research that people felt that coming from another underrepresented area, another underrepresented group within engineering and technology just added to those challenges that people felt within the workplace.
And how can, so Caroline, if I come to you for this one, how can neurotypical line managers understand how to support their direct reports who may be neurodivergent?
I didn't mention one of the things we're doing around culture, which is a training package. So we have a training package on our systems open to anyone for neuroinclusivity for line managers, neuroinclusivity for recruiters, neuroinclusivity for HR. I would really encourage all firms to get some kind of formal training. Ours is provided by a company called Optimize. It's a really good reference point and starting point for people to go to understand what questions to ask. I think my biggest thing is that I think it's the diagnosis rates are something like 50%. Actually, in autism, and particularly in autistic adults, because 30, 40 years ago, the definition of autism was so much narrower than it is today, that actually diagnosis rates are enormously low. And for people who are diagnosed, disclosure rates are really low. So actually, I think somewhere around 10% mark. So really, really low number of people who are diagnosed and willing to disclose their neurodiversity. And as a result, you might actually never know if your employee is neurodivergent. And so actually treating it as a possibility, adapting your techniques, looking at things that you can use, communication plans, just offering various different choices to see what works for that individual. Because I'm going to come back to, I think, the key message of the day, which is not all neurodivergent people are the same either.
Yeah.
So there is no one size fits all.
I think having gone through that journey then, so if the question has been asked by a line manager who is now in this situation, let's just explain. The individual that has had the diagnosis knows more than you. They know more than you because they've just gone through this entire journey and had medical people talk to them, and they've done all the research, and they're now living this journey. So they know more than you. So don't come at it as if now your duty of care is that you need to know more and guide them, because you don't.
Yeah.
Form a partnership, and certainly to what's been said here is, my manager was great because my manager, she acted dumb. She goes, well, what does that mean? And I said, right, well, I can tell you what I've been given on my literature by the person doing the diagnosis, and let's figure this out together. Oh, if I've got my head in my hands, I'm actually taking my brain off the boil. I'm not having a big panic attack, which work would probably allow you to do. So again, you go through this individual thing. But yeah, I think my counsel to the individual would be, this individual knows more than you, and they can probably answer your questions now. And then if you want to learn more, there's loads of great things out there, and we've got certain courses as well at Voices. But yeah, the individual will know more.
That's great. And another one here that I think might be good with you, Andy. How can we be more neuro-inclusive in our recruitment practices?
Oh, right. So we'll come to you. You take a deep breath.
Roll out the spiel.
So okay. So for the purpose of the audience, I was in our engineering department for the best part of 11 years, and I've now moved into an HR role. So I kind of see from both functions how it is. There's some things that you can do that still allows an organisation to do broad spread recruitment, but they can still support individuals, which again, coming back to this trend, will support everybody. So you can send out questions in advance. An interview process, a recruitment process, does not need to be a memory test or a quiz. Okay? You can give the option to the individual of, do you want to do it face-to-face? Do you want to do it on a video? Do you want to do it with your camera on, camera off? Because you should be interested in the experience and the quality of the experience, not whether they turn up. And this is one of the biggest blockers, like I might be now, looking nervous, kind of shaking, I'm masking, and I'm a bit worried about what's coming out of my mouth because I can't get the cable to my brain right. So you take all of these blockers away, and then you end up, you bring it down just to, I don't really care what you wear, I don't really care if you're here or not. We can, we've gone through a whole world of doing things on camera, whether your camera's on or not. And you take away the pressure just to go, I just want to learn about you. And by sending out the questions in advance, they're prepared to give you their best because they've had time to research their best. And actually, if you do that to everybody on the panel, you haven't given anyone any preferential treatment. You've just made it an easy pass. You've made it easy to recruit the best for you. How's that?
Really good.
Excellent.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
For me, I've said this to many people before and no one's done it yet. I would like to get rid of the interview completely and the interview process. I'd love it if we could remold recruitment around in-place work experience. And I think that would actually do one of those things that benefits neurotypicals and neurodivergent people, because you'd actually see both the candidate and the employer would be able to see what life would be like when they're actually there. And I don't think the interview is really a good way to do that. That's my personal view. I don't think it's the view of Atkins Realis.
And this is a great, sorry, Caroline, this is a great example of where you've got ingrained historical practices, which to say something like that would make a lot of people shudder. Oh, we can't, we've always done it. But back in the day, it might have been the right time. But now in 2024, and again, let's challenge it, right?
Yeah, and I think this is where there's real value in apprenticeships. And actually, apprenticeships was one of the 19 points that Sir Robert Buckland made in his recent study into the low levels of employment of autistic people as to ways that businesses and government can create that neuro-inclusive pipeline. So it's a starting point, but let's get rid of it completely.
And it's literally like that. It's an hour interview, which is the blocker. Once the individual's in, they'll shine, but it's that 1 hour, if that, which is basically the 100-metre chasm of which people can't navigate.
Yeah, the process and policies piece that Caroline was talking about earlier. Fab. So another question here, Laura. Any advice for small companies that aren't big enough to have an effective network? Where should someone start?
I know of networks that are happening across sectors. So I know there's one at the moment about neurodiversity and rail being set up. We've got our IET neurodiversity member network. It doesn't have to be specific to your organisation, and in fact you might hear from a wider group of people with different experiences. Again, it might be a case-by-case approach. Is it that individuals want something smaller within their organisation or something wider? But also there's a lot of information out there now. So our report, reports from others, the training packages that we're talking about here, there is so much available if you go and seek it out. You may not have a team to help deliver it internally in a small organisation, but there's a lot you can find, read, learn. I think we've all talked about opening ourselves up to learning more, listening to people with the experience, and taking it from there.
Brilliant. And is there a way to support workers who are remote and virtual, should anything change there? Caroline, do you want to?
Should anything change?
In terms of, I think, how we work with our colleagues who work virtually or remotely, are there tips and tricks?
I think what it's really, the fact that we are in this hybrid workspace is actually a real positive for neuro-inclusion. In this piece around asking people to all go and sit in an open plan office and asking people to travel at certain hours for, if you're commuting during a busy rush hour and you have sensory sensitivities to noise or smells, or you're ADHD, you arrive at work tired, right? So actually enabling people to work at home some days of the week is a real positive for neuro-inclusion, and the fact that it's the norm now, I think is really fantastic. The only thing I would say is that sometimes I think that that can be isolating as well. So I think the mixture is good, and encouraging the mixture is a real positive.
Yeah, I think there's a few things you can do, quite quick things if you're a manager with a team, which might be, for a duty of care, I ask all my team members to send in, we do it in a jokey way, but send in photos of where you're working. Because then I can assess, have they got the right laptops at the right height? Because if you're working there long, I have a duty to give care for where they're working at home, and then I can enact certain things. And you can do that whether they're standing up or what their environment is. But you can do it in a jokey way with the team, so let's all send in where we work. My concern would be to an individual knowing what a neurodivergent brain can be like, is are they getting their breaks? Not are they doing their work, are they getting their breaks? Because a lot of us would have gone through and experienced how valuable that time is to walk from one meeting room to the other. All of that goes, right? And you can end up just working constantly. And like I said before, you're going to have really excited people who actually aren't doing it for the money. They're doing it for the thrive of their project. And I've had certain people who have worked into the 9s and 8s and 10s o'clock at night because they love it. And I'm actually having to put blocks on things rather than encourage them. So that's where my duty of care would be, on an individual basis, I think.
That's great, really valuable. And I think one here that would be good for Laura. How can we ensure genuine inclusion and fair representation without tokenism or burdening minorities?
I think it's everything we've already talked about today. It's thinking about reasonable adjustments within the workplace, thinking about awareness, training. It's all the pieces of the puzzle coming together. It really being embedded in the working culture, in an organisation's values, behaviours, the way that people collaborate and work together. It's about how it all gels, how it all fits together, and how people really can succeed, fulfil their potential, enjoy their work, be the best that they can be at work. So the outcomes of the work are excellent.
Yeah. We've had another question here that asks, would it be worth talking about or holding training for neuro-inclusivity if my workplace has a very good culture and is very supportive? Yes, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah,
When
definitely.
does training not benefit people?
Yeah, exactly. And somebody else asked, when applying for jobs, should I mention I'm awaiting my diagnosis assessment?
I think that's personal choice. That's absolutely personal choice. I think as a company, what we have to do is advertise how neuro-inclusive we are. We have to educate any interviewers in that space as to what neuro-inclusion means, how it benefits the business, so that they have the right reaction when that disclosure is made. I think an individual will have to weigh up their personal circumstances, how confidently they feel they can disclose at the interview stage, what the company has come across like in terms of neuro-inclusion, how they might take it if they did get the wrong reaction. It's very much a case-by-case basis. I would love to say, yes, you would have definitely a super positive reaction and it would be really great as part of the interview process. But I have to be real, and I don't think we're there yet.
I think there's, why would you do that? If it's about you believe you have real traits that are advantageous for the job you're going for, then list the traits. If it's to make changes during the interview process, then I can only speak for voices, but I know that's what we have a box of that says, do you need any adjustments? So you can say, I want to do it on the camera and thing, and actually it's the recruitment team, not the hiring manager, who sees that.
Yeah.
Even I would struggle what to do with somebody that even puts it on there. How is it? Unless you're talking about specific traits that you have that you feel you have a real power and for, that one line probably wouldn't add much value on a CV, I don't think.
No, but at the same time, if people feel they want to disclose it, you don't want to disclose it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to discourage it, but again, what value would it add for the goal that you're getting?
Yes, consider that, and that should be your decision.
And that should be the decision.
Whether it's a yes or a no. Yeah, fab.
So I totally agree there on personal choice, but I think there's something there about the outcome. What if you feel that that's what you want from the workplace, that you want to, that you may choose to work for, then maybe having that discussion up front is the right thing for you. I think it depends what you're looking for, what the outcome is.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We've had a few more that I'm really sorry, but we're not going to have time to get through to. But thank you so much to everybody for all of your questions. Fantastic. And thank you very much for your in-depth answers. It's really interesting. Before we go, IET Chief Executive and Secretary Ed Almond is going to share what commitments we, the IET, are doing to be a more neuro-inclusive organisation.
Hello, I'm Ed Almond, the Chief Executive and Secretary at the Institution of Engineering and Technology. So I'd like to talk about our commitments as an organisation and what we're doing as an institution to be more neuro-inclusive. And we're making the following 7 commitments. Firstly, enhancing neuro-inclusion across the IET through improved organisational practices. Secondly, ensuring accessibility in our governance processes to allow for increased representation of neurodiverse professionals in leadership roles. Thirdly, delivering a practical toolkit to help foster safe working environments for neurodiverse engineers and employers. Offering professional development opportunities to raise awareness of the strengths of neurodiversity within the STEM community. Growing, developing and supporting our IET Neurodiversity member network. Advocating for the needs of neurodivergent engineers and technicians, so engaging with government and key industry forums to do that. And finally, collaborating with other professional engineering institutions to create a more neuro-inclusive profession. So to read how we plan to achieve these commitments and see our recommended actions for organisations and employers, please visit the iet.org/neurodiversity or scan the QR code on screen now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And now you've heard our commitments, it's a chance to make your own. Please do scan the QR code that's on screen right now to download the Neurodiversity pledge cards and share your commitment across social media. I'd also like to remind IET members that support is available via Foothold, and more information on that can be seen on screen right now. A massive thank you to everyone for joining us today, here in person, online on our YouTube link, and of course to our 3 guests here on the sofa. I am definitely feeling inspired, and I hope that you are all too. Thanks very much, and goodbye for now.